Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar, The Simple View of Reading, Integrating Decoding and Language Comprehension Utilizing the Slingerland Approach. Before introducing our presenter, I'd like to walk through just a couple of reminders. This interactive webinar is scheduled for 90 minutes, and all the attendees have been muted. We ask that you stay muted until asked to unmute by either the presenter or the panelists. Hopefully everyone has their handouts prepped and ready to use, and you also have your writing instrument and paper readily available. The presenter will let you know when you'll need to use it. If you have any questions during this presentation, please put them in the Q&A tab on the webinar toolbar. It's at the bottom, it should be at the bottom of your screen. The presenter or the panelist will respond to questions at the end of this session. We may not get to all of the questions posed during the allotted time, but Mrs. Naftel will review any leftover questions and provide feedback as appropriate. This presentation is being recorded, and a link will be provided to all registrants within 5 business days of this session ending. The recording will be posted on the Slingerland Literacy Institute YouTube page. Now to introduce our wonderful presenter, Mrs. Shira Naftel. Mrs. Naftel is the founder of It's a Teachable Moment. She's an educational consultant who for the past 23 years has worked with school administrators, teachers, students, and parents in Muncie, New York. She has many years of training and experience with the Slingerland Approach, Linda Mood Bell Learning Processes, and Equipped for Reading Success by Dr. David Kilpatrick. Mrs. Naftel engages the use of multisensory techniques to enhance educational outcomes in the areas of reading, spelling, and language comprehension. She has dedicated 18 summers to organizing and teaching a 4-week practicum class under the auspices of the Slingerland Institute, which empowers teachers to meet the needs of their students. Mrs. Naftel is known for her practical, clear, and engaging presentation style. Organizational affiliations include Everyone Reading, the Center for Effective Reading Instruction, as a structured literacy dyslexia interventionist, a Reading League member and presenter, the International Dyslexia Association, and the Slingerland Institute for Literacy, where she's a member and she's a certified instructor of teachers. Mrs. Naftel, welcome, and I pass the torch to you.
Oh, you do? Oh, no. Okay. I want to welcome everybody. I want to thank Elise very, very much for all she did to put this together. It's a big job. And thank the Institute. And we have a special group tonight. They're going to be my class, but they're really my teachers. So that's kind of funny. So we have Sue Winters. Sue, you want to just wave so they could see who you are? And we have Nancy Cushion White, we have Bonnie Meyer, and we have Bev Wolf. 2 are from California and 2 are from Washington State. So that is the fun thing about Zoom. And I wanted to just make sure that everybody has their little packet of papers. And we're kind of going to go through them. If you want, you can actually make notes if you want on your blank lesson plan, or you can just take notes on your PowerPoint, and they're kind of in order. So you can go through those in order, okay? If you have questions, you can do it on the Q&A at the bottom. So let me share my PowerPoint. I meant to put that on before. Whoops, that's not where it's supposed to be. 1 second. Why is that? At least I'm having 1 sec. I don't know why it's not allowing me to. Oh, maybe let's try this. I'm sorry. Okay, I think I got it now. Nope, it's not allowing me to start at the beginning, which is a little funny.
Shira, click on the first slide in your PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Okay, and now
click on it.
Go to
Present.
slide.
Yeah, slideshow. Mhm.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's not.
It's not funny, but it's interesting. I never had that happen. Should I try to go out and come back into it and see?
Yes, stop sharing for a moment and then open up the PowerPoint independent. Okay.
Okay, let me see. Just
Yeah.
1 sec.
Don't share. Open up the PowerPoint independently as a presentation and then try that.
Okay, 1 sec. Whoops. Can you see anything now?
No, you are not sharing as yet.
Okay, 1 sec. Okay, so you said to not share or to share?
I
I'm
said,
sorry.
don't share for a moment.
Don't share. Okay.
Yeah. Open up PowerPoint independently and see if you can get it into.
Oh, I
mode.
see what you're saying. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So don't share. And open it up. And so now it is working. So should I try it again now with to share
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Welcome again. Okay. Who am I and why am I talking to you this evening? So I'm a concerned educator. I believe that knowledge is power, and I'm very excited to help to build the knowledge that empowers teachers. I support bringing the science of reading into your teaching sessions, and I believe in moving boulders out of the way, not just crawling over them. And we actually have a visitor who's been waiting on the side for a few minutes now. And he's a little insulted because, as most of you know, because you went ahead and looked at your papers, which usually you wouldn't get if we were doing a real teaching class, you wouldn't have your passage before. We're going to be reading something from Peter Rabbit and written by Beatrix Potter. And we have a little puppet here, and he is very supportive of the science of reading. And he just wants me to tell you that the science of reading is really very friendly. And and his grandfather was actually in one of Beatrix Potter's books as a tortoise. And that book would be The Tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher. His name is Snappy. And he just said, now we need to move on. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next slide. Okay, this is my fireworks and thunderbolts and shrink wrap big box programs. So we all want the quick fix, but it really doesn't exist. And the fix is really becoming better trained teachers. And we believe less is more. And we believe, or as Marianne Wolf, the last time I spoke, she's a researcher, and the last time I heard her speak, she said, the job of a teacher is to bridge the science and the imagination. And when you do that, and you give the proficient skills to children, then you get science, a mixture of science and poetry. And I thought that was just beautiful. And we need to remember that we need to be understanding of ourselves, that we're going to keep growing and learning. And you don't have to be bad to get better, that we all need each other to help to grow this process of knowing more about what the science and the evidence tells us and how to bring that into our teaching. Okay. Now we're going to talk about something called the simple view of reading. So the simple view of reading is actually quite simple. It is it says reading comprehension is the product of word level reading and language comprehension. And if you notice, it is a multiplication sign. It is a multiplicative process, in that if either side of the equation, if the word learning side is not strong, the ability to decode, or the language comprehension side is not strong, then the reading comprehension side cannot happen. So if you have 0 on either side of your multiplication table, then your the other side is 0. So you have to have word level reading and language comprehension multiplied, and then we get reading comprehension. So even though the, let me just see my notes. So we always have to keep these 2 critical pieces in mind: word level reading or decoding and language comprehension. And the Slingerland format, as we will see hopefully tonight, will show this, that it's word level reading brought in the language comprehension and bringing them together. Okay, it's not one or the other. The reading wars are over. It's both of them that we need to worry about. Okay, now here is another view of the simple view of reading. It doesn't look so simple, but again, if you notice, we have the 2 major areas: the word recognition and word identification, linguistic comprehension, and reading comprehension. And if you just kind of look through, we have cipher skills, we have very important, everybody knows my favorite topic, phonological awareness, sound symbol would be all on your word recognition side. And then on your linguistic comprehension side, we have attention, working memory, and those types of things. Okay. Then we have one more way to look at this, a very famous, it's called Scarborough's rope, reading rope. And it again gives us that same picture of word recognition, and these are the different tasks under word recognition, language comprehension, and how they all combine to equal skilled reading. I wanted just to say one more thing, and so that is just another view of the simple view of reading. I wanted to say also that the simple view of reading is the most overarching view of reading, and it was proposed by Goff and Tumner. There's about 150 studies, this I got from Dr. Kilpatrick, that validate its premise in both children and adults. It was written in 1986 because the concern was that people were saying that what's only important about reading is comprehension. And that was why they began to look at this more closely, so they could begin to show that it's not good enough just to put children into literate text, but we need to teach them how to break down the words, not just to teach them how to crawl over the boulder, but how to move the boulder out of the way. And so that is why both of these are very important. Okay, we are on to the lesson plan format to talk about that. So if you notice, we have the lesson plan format down here on the bottom of the page, on the bottom of the PowerPoint, and I've highlighted the important categories within the plan. So we're going to actually be starting up here and going here and then going down. And then for a brief minute, we're going to go over to the auditory side. So mostly tonight, we're going to be on the visual side of the lesson plan. Okay, what is great about the Slingerland lesson plan? It is amazing. It is explicit and intentional. Everything that's in it, and I'll show you my written plan at the end, there's a reason, and I could tell you why it's there. It's integrated. We have integrated our oral development with our handwriting, with our knowledge of graphemes and phonemes, or phonemes and graphemes if you're on the auditory side, our ability to decode words, and our ability to read phrases and read with phrases in context. It all comes together. It's not just disparate learnings. It is sequential, so it goes in an order. It is cumulative. We do a lot of review while we work. It builds from smaller to larger units, which you will see. It builds success, it builds confidence, and it shows consistent processes. So every day we're using a similar process with the children, but we're deepening what we're teaching, we're changing what we're teaching, but the children know what to expect, and that gives them a great amount of confidence. So there is our beautiful Slingerland lesson plan. So every Slingerland lesson begins with something called Question of the Day. It is, the purpose of it is oral language development. It focuses on a few things. One is oral language development. One is presentation skills. How much of life do we spend presenting? Do people have to be able to present if they're leading a family dinner even, or they're speaking at work, or they're trying to sell somebody on a big thing like the science of reading? We've got to be able to present. The ability to listen and respond is part of that process. And probably the most important thing it teaches is the ability to ask questions, okay? To teach people how they can then formulate questions to ask. And I've actually attached it to what we're going to read today. So that's part of the integration I'd like you to notice. I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to go first, like we would in any Slingerland lesson. I go first, and then I'm going to call on two of my class to respond. So what is your favorite childhood story and why? Now I will go first, and I will say my name. My name is Mrs. Naftel. My favorite childhood story is Stella Luna, because it teaches what true friendship is. My favorite childhood story is Stella Luna because it teaches what true friendship is. So later on, you can write that down. You might want to read that book. Okay, now I'm going to call on my class to, I'm going to call on Sue Winters. And Sue, do you need me to repeat the question for you?
No, I think I've got it. Thank you. My name is
Okay.
Sue Winters. One of my favorite childhood stories is Blueberries for Sal, because I love the sound that the author put in for the blueberries plink, plink, plinking into the bucket.
Very nice. Okay, now if we were in a class or we have a little more time, which we probably don't tonight, I might say, does anybody have a question about that answer? Okay, so we could then garner them to ask a question or ask, did anybody else ever read that story? Okay, and then Bev Wolf, is it possible that you could answer the question? Would you like me to repeat it for you?
No, thank you. My favorite childhood, it's hard to think of my favorite childhood story because there are so many, but I think I want to tell you about Little Blue and Little Yellow by Leone. It's about friendship and families and how everyone's different, but everyone needs the same kinds of things. It's a wonderful book.
Very nice. So we now have 3 books to read. So that was just a taste of Question of the Day. And if you notice, or maybe I didn't say it, if you look, the highlight is where we're working in the format. So you can kind of follow where we are. So here we are up at Question of the Day. Okay, so we're going to keep moving down now. Okay, the next part of our lesson plan right here, and if you have it in your hand, it's right here, is called Learning to Write, where we work on writing letters. Well, this is my student, a student of mine, and I probably don't need to say too much because when you look at the before and you look at the after, you kind of understand why this is the impact it can have, but not even just so much from the point of view of the letter formations, but look at the organization of the page. Okay, so that gets into executive function even. How do you organize that page? How do you make spaces? How do you know when to stop on a line and go to the next line? How do you know how much space to leave? Okay, so Learning to write teaches letter formation. It would either be print or cursive. Okay, so usually above third grade, we teach third grade and above, we would be doing cursive. It talks, we explicitly teach letter size and alignment. We teach letter connections for certainly for cursive, but even sometimes in print, when we're going to learn certain things, we might teach that together. It fosters automaticity and a rhythmic flow. It develops fluency and automaticity to functional use. That's the critical word, that they can use it when they need it and be able to write quickly enough to make use of that. It's used throughout the Slingerland lesson, and it is mostly used on the auditory side. It is on the auditory side. We're going to do a snippet of it tonight. So I just wanted to show that. I didn't want to leave out learning to write. I think there's some rap going on that people don't have to learn how to write anymore, but the research says not the case. It supports supports the ability to read and to spell. Handwriting, very important. Okay, visual alphabet cards. So what do visual alphabet cards do? And we are here on the lesson plan. It supports sound symbol association. If we're on the visual side, it's the grapheme, which is the written letter, connected to the phoneme, which is the sound. Okay, so we're on the visual side. And of course, my hot topic is making sure to pronounce those sounds correctly. Some sounds are voiced, some are unvoiced. We can't go into the details of that tonight, but it's really important that is known in order to teach these letter sounds. Letters require graphemes to phonemes. Letter cards require hundreds of repetitions to ensure automatic association and the ability to functionally use them for then decoding and phrases and in context and for the writing. Okay. Usually we're going to pick cards that represent the letters in our decoding list. So what I did here to kind of show that connection is show what my decoding words are for my lesson tonight. And these are my cards. So if you notice, I picked an F because I have an F in my decoding words. So there's an interconnection and an integration. I'm not just doing random cards, okay? And of course, the cards are one sound, and it's the smallest unit of sight, sound, and feel, one sound. And then we build the words from these units. And Mrs. Slingerland, I'm going to quote from her book, said, visually presented graphemes must be simultaneously associated with their names, sounds, and feel, this is very important, in speech and arm in order to be useful for decoding words, okay? So the speech mechanism is involved and the hand when we write, okay? So now we're going to do a little sample of what it looks like to do cards, okay? So I am going, you can see my cards, my class. And class, can you tell me about this card? Let's do it all together.
A, R, R.
Good, okay. The next one, Nancy Cushion White, could you do that? And then the class will repeat. Tell me about this letter. Can you see it?
T, turtle.
Class, repeat. T, turtle. Good, okay. Bev Wolf, can you tell me about this letter? I think maybe is her camera?
No, just a minute there. Oh.
Can you see? Oh, good, okay.
Is it on? Okay. B, ball, B.
Great, class, repeat. We're doing cursive, by the way. B,
pardon me.
ball, it's okay. It's okay, because I kind of wasn't clear on that. Okay, can everybody together do this one? E, E-A,
E.
and it's eat, E. Okay, very good. Okay, it's E-R, her. Everybody together, tell me about this letter. E-R, her. Good. And Sue Winters, can you tell me about this letter?
N, nest, N.
Good. Class repeat. Everybody together.
N,
N-S.
N.
Very good. Nice work. Thank you so much. And Nancy Cushion White, can you tell me about this letter?
R, rug, r.
Good. Everybody. R, rug, r. Okay. And I think we're back to the beginning. Very good. So that gives you a little idea of what that looks like. Okay. Next, we are going to do decoding. Okay. So we're here at alphabet cards. We're moving down the visual side. Okay. Not yet. I'm ahead of myself. Decoding word list. First of all, how are we going to choose the cards? I mean, how are we going to choose our words? First of all, we've got to make sure that our words match the pattern that we're trying to teach. Okay. So in other words, do cat and chip belong on the same list because they both begin with C? And the answer, of course, is no, because cat begins with a k sound and chip begins with a ch sound represented by CH. So it's not really a C word. Okay. So how are we going to know what to choose? First of all, we're going to use word lists to make sure that we're clean on the words that we're picking. If we try to make them up, first of all, it takes a long time, so you'll never get dinner ready or a laundry made, and you won't get the right words. So we're going to use a word list. There's a couple you could use, more than a couple. I'm going to recommend a couple tonight. One is the teacher word list, the Slingerland teacher word list, which you can order directly from the Institute. That is a book. And then there's something called WordSpring that was Mrs. Carol Murray developed it. She is no longer with us. She's no longer alive, but she developed it and it's on the computer and it's now free of charge. And I don't know if you can see, and I can't see it on mine because this stuff is covering it, but it gives you lexia.net. If you go there, you can download it for free and it will create lists for you. You pick the words, it creates a printed list and you have your decoding list ready. So please do make use of that. Know your sounds and graphemes that represent them. Do you need to know that CH does not say k, and it would not be on a C list, okay? Focus on the pattern or patterns that you are trying to teach or practice. Understand how the words are categorized by the patterns and look carefully at the words in the passage you will be reading to unveil, or to shine a light upon, that's a new term, shine a light upon the types of patterns that are in the passage. Okay, and you will see that we've done that tonight. Okay. Here are the patterns that are in my passage that I'm going to do. Just so you know, I know you have the passage in your hands. Usually we don't want that to happen. We usually give the passage after we've done our preparation for reading, but because we're zooming around all over, that's how it has to be. But look, my passage is 4 sentences, good sentences, but 4 sentences. And look how many types of word patterns are in those 4 sentences. We've got short vowel, we've got digraph, we've got vowel consonant E, we've got phonograms 1 syllable, we've got R-controlled words, we have open syllable words, we have 1 and 2 syllable words with suffixes, we have word families, and we have 2 and 3 syllable words divided between 2 consonants, and we have 2 syllable words that are divided before the consonant. So, and consonant-elly, lots of different patterns. And so I went through and did an analysis, and all of these words are in the passage. There's only a couple extra words in the word families because I wanted to show that they were a family and a group of words. Okay. So Mrs. Slingerland says it best. Unlocking groups of letters combined to form words is a skill that enables children to decode many unrecognized words. simply unlocking, or she called it unlocking or decoding the pronunciation of words, however, cannot be considered reading. This is simply called word calling. She's giving us a little hint that just reading words by themselves, it's really not enough. Okay, we're going to move into the next piece soon. To name a single word out of context teaches no meaning, but without context teaches no meaning, but only reinforces what the decoder may already understand it to mean. When the word is unlocked as part of a phrase, which we're going to get to soon, its meaning clarifies the meaning of the phrase. If the word is unrecognized, the meaning of the phrase will be lost until the word is decoded. Therefore, the ability to unlock words or decode is an important skill for the development of independent reading. Okay, now I'm going to pray that when I go to my document camera, we're not going to have any trouble. Okay. Now, some of you may not have seen a document camera, so I'm going to stop my share. And here I am. Oh, and look, we have our Peter Rabbit table. So here's our little guy, because he felt bad that he wasn't included, so he's going to stay in the corner. And then we have our chamomile tea, which if you've read Peter Rabbit, at the end, he has a little chamomile tea, and we have our book. And this teacup is Mrs. Slingerland's teacup that I got from Mrs. Murray. So I'm going to move it aside, because now I'm going to move my book aside, and I'm going to lay down my decoding words, and I'm going to grab my pen. Okay. So the first thing we might do, this is all, a little synthetic because we're on Zoom and it's not a class. The first thing that we're going to do is, one second, stick this down a little, is we're going to read a review list. So this would be a list of words that I would review with my class. We would not be decoding them. We would just be reading them through. Okay, so here we go. And I think they can see it. And so my class, Sue Winters, could you please read the first 3 words in our review decoding list?
You want me to tell you about the vowel pattern that I see, or just read the words?
You could do that also. I was just going to have them read it, but it's fine.
Okay.
That's good too. Go ahead. You could do that.
I see an A followed by a consonant saying ah, fat.
Good.
A consonant saying ah, brass.
And can the class repeat? Brass.
Brass.
Repeat that correctly.
O consonant E saying O, stone.
Good. And Bev, could I have you please read the next 3 words? If you want, you can identify or just read for fluency.
Oh, shook.
Nice. Shook. Everybody repeat.
Shook.
Shook. Good.
E-A-E, head.
Very nice. Head.
E-R, her.
Very nice. Okay. And then Nancy Cushion White, could you read to the end of the list? I think I'm going to do it this way.
E-R, her.
Her.
E at the end of a 1-syllable word. E, he.
Class. He.
A, it's a letter. I see the letter combination. A, L, L, all, wall.
Wall.
I see another letter combination. O, L, D, old.
Old.
I see a suffix, ed. I see 1 vowel pattern in my base word, which is O, consonant, ah. My base word is lock, ED makes the word tell what happened in the past. Locked.
Locked. Very nice. Okay. So that would kind of be my little review list. And now I'm going to actually take out my decoding list. One minute, we're having a change of scenery here. This is like kind of like being in a performance here. Okay. And now I'm going to kind of talk through a few of these to kind of show you the kinds of things we'd be thinking about when we'd be teaching this. This would be our new learning. So the first thing is I put a little asterisk by this word because we do have our, we do have our AR. One sec. We do have an AR that says R, but then we have this E hanging out. So we're going to have to make sure that they know that the E is here really to make the G say the J sound. Okay, it's not about the vowel. So here we have underline the vowel, and then we have A, R, R, large, class.
Large.
Okay, now we're going to talk about how are we going to do that, this word. So first we're going to dot our vowels. So we know it has 2 syllables, and I will divide between my 2 like consonants. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, I see my vowel, and my vowel is A, rab. And then I underline the vowel I, bit, rabbit. Class.
Rabbit.
Oh no, this is a big one. This is a big one, teacher. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna put some dots for my vowels. I'm gonna dot this in the middle, and I see ER, I know it stays together. I see EA, and I know it stays together. Now I will begin my division. Okay, so I'm gonna say I divide between the 2 consonants, and I will divide between the 2 consonants, and I will go back and I will say, I'll underline the vowel, U, un. I underline the vowel, ER, der. I underline the vowel, EA, neath, and now I have underneath, class.
Underneath.
How did I do on that? Pretty good for
Excellent.
3 syllables. That was a hard one. Okay, now I'm going to do my division before the consonant. Okay, so I'm going to give my little dots to see how many syllables there's going to be. I know there's going to be 2, and I'm going to divide before the consonant. So now I've got an open syllable. So I will underline the vowel. The vowel says, the vowel is O, the sound, the vowel is O. The sound is O, and it's O, and then I will underline the vowel ER, ver, and I have over. I know that word. Class, repeat.
Over.
Good. And I will dot my vowel. I will divide before the consonant. Now I will underline the E. It says EB. I will underline the A, and it says a, and then I have began. And now I get to talk about a schwa sound here, because we don't usually say began, we say began. So there we have a little change. And the last one, maybe the most important word of all, is I will dot my vowel. I will divide before. I'm going to skip my step now. And then I have my open syllable P, and then I have second syllable ter. Peter, class.
Peter.
I know I skipped a few steps, but you know, this is how it goes because we want to get to the end. Got to get to the end. Okay. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to put this over here. Okay. So there was our little decoding lesson in preparation for what's the most important, which is, oh, I hope this isn't going to happen again. I hope Elise is nearby because let's see if I can get it to, okay, well, maybe, okay, you know what? It works because, oops, okay. Okay, we are now up to preparation for reading. Okay, so preparation for reading is down here, down here. So we've moved quite a ways down in our journey on the visual side. Okay, and there are 4 steps in preparation for reading, and we're good with time. Preparation for reading was how Mrs. Slingerland codified the way we learn language. So if you were to be sitting with a little child on your lap and a book, and you were looking at the pictures in the book, the mother would say, point to the cow, a picture of a cow, and say cow. And the baby or the small child, the toddler, would say cow. The next step of that development would be that the mommy would point to a picture, say of a flower, and the little baby or the little toddler says flower without having the mother say it first. The baby knows, the toddler knows. All right. And then the third step would be mommy gives a hint, like I'm thinking of something on the page that is big and bright and grows out of the ground. And the child says and points to the flower. Okay. And then the child independently is able to find the picture and point with the language, knowing how to say it on his own or her own. So this is what the 4 steps of the preparation for reading are about. It's how language develops. Okay. Its purpose is to remove the stumbling blocks for reading those phrases, which will eventually be, those phrases have been taken from the actual thing that we're going to read. And it develops the phrase concept that every phrase has meaning. So if we say the boy, it means who. If we say is singing, it means is doing what. Okay, so every phrase has meaning. Mrs. Slingerland says it best. Preparation is undertaken with the intention of eliminating numerous obstacles. Remember, we want to get rid of the obstacles, not crawl over them. Remember the picture of the big block. Okay. In an upcoming specific reading selection, we want to move away the obstacles. Among them, the failure to recognize words or phrase units or to perceive phrase meanings. Okay. So I'm going to pull that out for a minute. Okay, we are now going to actually show you, one sec. Okay, so here are our phrases, but I'm going to actually do it on my document camera. I have a reason for that because I want to be able to move my little marker around. And I need this. And I need this. And hopefully we won't have trouble getting back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Okay, so we will begin our phrases. I'm going to talk a lot about the phrases. Okay, I'm going to stop my share. And if anybody needs anything afterwards that they don't have, okay. That's pretty clear. Okay, good. Okay, so preparation for reading. Step 1 is what I'm going to do right now. Teacher models reading a phrase and develops vocabulary and punctuation. Okay, and keep thinking about the simple view of reading and how this is what we are doing right now. We are taking the sounds and putting them into words, which we did already. Now we're taking the words and they're going into our phrases. Okay. It's all integrated. Nothing is random here. Okay. Class, a door and a wall.
A door and a wall.
In a wall.
A door and a wall. And some people will use their hand, a door and a wall, to give the kids a feeling of the phrase. Okay. I might point out the semicolon, which means that when it will be in context, it'll be followed by a phrase that's very closely related to this phrase. Okay. And also I would find it interesting. A door in a wall gives me an interesting picture. And I know people are saying, well, there's always a door in a wall, but I think this is sort of a different kind of a wall. So we got to think about that. Was locked.
Was
Locked.
And what punctuation do you see there? A
Comma.
comma. Yep. A fat little rabbit.
A fat little rabbit.
Good. I like how she put together fat and little there. In and out.
In and out.
Over the stone doorstep.
Over the stone
doorstep.
doorstep.
Right. And I might check in with my kids. What is a doorstep? And what does that mean? A stone doorstep. They don't always see stone doorsteps. So we can relate it back to the doorsteps in houses. Sometimes they're wood, sometimes they're metal. Okay. In the wood.
In the
In
wood.
the wood.
Right. And I might ask about that. In the wood. Does that mean like in the trees, like in the woods? Or does that mean like in the wood, like of your wall? What do you think?
In the
And
wood.
we're
of
not
your wall.
sure, but usually we'd say woods. So we need to be alert that that may be something a little different. Could not answer.
Could
Could
not
not
answer.
answer.
Okay. Now we're going to do step 2, which is child finds and reads the phrases and for development of fluency. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to ask Nancy Cushion White, can you find the phrase? And as you read it, I will hold the marker up. I know it's a little backwards. Usually the child will come up, find the phrase with the marker after we say it. But we have to do it a little different this time. So we're flexible people, so we can handle this. Okay, can you find the phrase could not answer?
Yes, it's at the bottom. Could not
Good.
answer.
And everybody repeat. Could not answer. Sue, can you find the phrase a fat little rabbit?
It's number 3, a
Very
fat
good.
little rabbit.
Class, a fat
fat
little
rabbit.
rabbit. Good. Bev, can you find the phrase a door in a wall?
It's the first one.
Okay.
A door in a wall.
Class,
A door
a door in a
in a
wall. Okay. I hope I didn't skip any now. Is Bonnie on, or can I not see her?
I'm here.
Okay, because for some reason, I can't see. I'm so sorry. You're blocked for some reason. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you find the phrase was locked?
It is the second one.
Okay.
Was locked.
Class was
locked.
locked. Sue, can you find the phrase in the wood?
The second from the bottom, in the
Okay.
wood.
Class in
In
the
the wood.
wood. Okay. And I think we have 2 more. Okay. Bonnie, can you find the phrase, over the stone doorstep?
It is the third from the bottom.
Okay.
Over the stone doorstep.
Good. Class, over the
Over the
stone
stone
doorstep.
doorstep.
And the last one, everybody, is in and out. Can you find it?
In the middle.
In the middle. Okay, everybody together. In and
out.
out. Okay, that was step 2. Now we go to what I like, my favorite, of course, is, let me clip my clippy board, is step 3, which is, remember we said the mother says moo and the child finds it on the page and says cow. Step 3 is teacher gives clues to find the phrase. It works on the comprehension. Okay, so I would like for Sue to please read the phrase that describes that something was not easily accessible. Read the phrase that describes that something was not easily accessible.
The second one was locked.
Okay, everybody repeat. Was locked. Sue, I'm going to do another one with you, okay?
Mhm.
How about find the phrase that tells us where mice might scamper?
Huh. It's there's two really. The one in the middle, in and out.
Okay, now does that tell us where? Oh, yes. Okay, in this it does, yes. And do you see another phrase that might tell us
I
where?
do.
Where
Yeah,
would that?
it's also the one right below that, over the stone doorstep.
Oh, class, over the stone doorstep. Okay, 1 second.
There's another one, teacher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what would it be?
In the wood, but I can't see.
Okay, everybody. In the wood. Okay. Very good. That's very good. Okay.
Always a kid like that.
Now I have another question. How about now that Nancy chimed in, she's next.
Oh.
That's how that goes. Okay, I want you to find a phrase that tells where an escaping individual might find, an escaping individual might find freedom through this. An escaping individual might find freedom through this.
I like two, but I'll go for the one at the top, a door in a wall.
I agree. Everybody together. A door in a wall. I'm sorry, I didn't move my marker. Okay, and then, okay, you're not off the hook, Nancy, yet. Okay, how about find and read the phrase that means a furry, rotund little beast.
A fat little rabbit.
Okay, everybody together, a fat little rabbit. There's about 30 other people that should be repeating after us that we can't hear, but they need to be with us. Okay, Nancy, one more. Find the phrase that tells where tiny creatures might dwell. Where might
the wood? They don't have to be tiny to be there, but
okay, everybody together. In the wood. Okay. How about Bev? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Okay. How about find and read the phrase that tells us who was unable to squeeze through a very narrow space.
A fat little rabbit.
Okay, class, repeat. A fat little rabbit. Very nice. Okay, one more, or maybe two. Find the phrase that tells us that a creature was not able to do something. Find the phrase that tells us that a creature, Bev, was not able to do something.
Could not answer.
Very good. Everybody together. Could
not
answer. Okay. How about Bonnie? Are you ready? Is Bonnie there?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Are you ready? How about this? Find the phrase that tells us how the bee was flying near the hive. Find the phrase that tells us how the bee was flying near the hive. Or we could say to the hive. Maybe
in the wood.
Okay, so in the wood would tell us where the bee was, but can you find a phrase looking from the top down that talks about kind of what it looks like when a bee is going in and out of the hive?
In and out. In and out.
Okay, everybody together. In and out. Notice my clue could be a little bit finessed. Did you notice? Okay, and Bonnie, how about find the phrase that tells us that a rodent was not able to respond?
Could
Find
not answer.
Oh yes, everybody could
Could not
answer. Okay, how about Sue? Can I ask you one more?
Sure.
Find and read the phrase that shows past time.
The second one was locked.
Was locked. What about that phrase shows a past time?
It has that ed suffix on the end of the base word.
Okay, and the ed's not, it sounds like a T, but is it spelled with a T?
No.
No, because it's the past time suffix, right? Very good. Okay, so I have a few more clues that I'll kind of just go through because I want to keep moving. So we're going to get finished. So for my first one, I also had find the phrase that tells what Peter found, even though they may not know that yet, but they may have read part of the book, or we may have talked a little bit about the book. My second phrase was locked. I had find the phrase. Okay, we did that. How about a fat little rabbit? I had find and read the phrase that tells us who was unable to squeeze through a very narrow space. Okay. Then in and out, find the phrase that tells us where a snake might slither when entering a house. Okay. And over the stone doorstep, find the phrase that tells how the frightened mouse was moving in and out. In the wood, find the phrase that tells a place that a carpenter can drive his nail. And could not answer. We did them both. Okay, we are good. Now we are going to do step 3, which is, that was step 3. I'm sorry, we did step 3. Step 4 is that a student will come up and read all the phrases. That will be your step 4, which is student reads phrases independently, which is the goal of the deal, right? So if I could have Nancy Cushion White, could you be our students, and I will move the marker and my class will repeat.
You want me to read how many? All?
Yes, all of them. That will be 7.
Oh, thank you. Okay. A door in a wall.
Class, a door in a wall.
Was locked.
Was locked.
A fat little rabbit.
A fat little rabbit.
In and out.
In and out.
Over the stone doorstep.
Over the stone doorstep.
In the wood.
In the wood.
Could not answer.
Could not answer. So you really get a feeling of, wow, how many times they've read those phrases and how it's pushing that boulder away, and they're ready to go on to the next part, which is actually reading in the context of the text. Reading in context. Okay, so give me a minute to change the stage again. We don't need this. I'm going to need this. Okay. Very good. And that was very good. Okay. Now I'm going to go, I hope, pray that when I go back to my thing, I can still get back to it. Okay. I think this is good. Hey. Okay, you could see it, right? Okay, so now we are up to prior knowledge. Okay, this is a fun slide because these are, if you were a classroom teacher or any kind of teacher, you're going to want to draw in a lot of knowledge about rabbits and hares And how is a hare like a rabbit and how is it different? And you're going to want to bring in literature. You're going to want to bring in poems and Aesop's fables, the hare and the tortoise. Ah, he's getting excited again, this guy. He heard tortoise. He's getting excited. Oh boy. And then biology and biologist. Actually, our author, Beatrix Potter, was a scientist. You probably don't know that, but you're going to learn a little bit more. And she studied fungus. And then fungi is a very weird plural word. That means more than one fungus. And then you have mycology. She studied, that is the study of fungus. And mycologist is the person who studies the fungus. And she lived at the time of the Victorian era, which you see in the books because all the pictures show that. And all these things that we would bring in, if we were going to really be teaching, we could bring in so many things. This could be a lesson for 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks of lessons, okay? And about the author. So the author was Helen, which we never see that name, Beatrix Potter, okay? And I'll just kind of walk you through the pictures a little bit. This was her as a little girl. We're going to hear a teeny bit about her as a little girl. And this is her as an older woman. You notice the type of buildings. They look a little different than what we're used to. These are a few of her books. She actually wrote 23 books. These are called Herdwick sheep. They only live in this area called the Lake District, where she spent her summers and ended up living later in her life. And then she ended up donating 4,000 acres of this land to the government for parkland. And then she was also an artist. So all of the illustrations in her books were done by her. She also did a lot with fungus and drawing things. She was very scientific. So if you notice the pictures, they have muscles, the animals, they're very realistic looking. So a little bit more about her. She lived in Britain during the late Victorian era, from 1837. That was from 1837 to 1901, and she was born in 1866. That was an era of rapid transformation in medicine, science, technology. It was a time of conformity, but many individuals challenged this, and she, in her own way, challenged this conformity. She was born into a privileged home, a very wealthy home. She was homeschooled by her governess. She was alone. Her brother went to boarding school. I believe girls at that time did not go to boarding school. So she was alone, and she became very friendly with animals. She had a lot of animals. She spent her summers in the Lake District. And in 1983, she wrote Peter Rabbit based on a letter that she'd written to an invalid boy. That's what the book was based on. She went on to author 23 books. Most of her sketches were modeled after the animals she cared for on her farm. She was a property owner. She founded the National Trust in 1895 to protect the countryside. She was a conservationist, and she bequeathed 4,000 acres of her land to the government, the British government. She was a mycologist. She discovered that lichens were a symbiotic relationship between fungi and algae. Now, you probably didn't know that. And she tried to get into a school of science, but they wouldn't accept her because she was a woman. And her books were turned down for many years because her pictures weren't in color. In 1901, at 35 years of age, she published her first book. Now, that should be very encouraging to us as teachers, that we don't go quick, but we get there. Beatrix Potter's stories and illustrations reflect her life's challenges and triumphs, and she was inspired by the natural beauty of the Lake District. And you could see how beautiful that area was. Okay, we are pretty good on time. Reading from the book. Okay, We have 4 steps in reading from the book. We got a lot of steps. Structured reading with the teacher, studying aloud with the teacher, studying silently with the teacher present, followed immediately by oral reading, studying independently without the teacher, followed by oral reading with the teacher. Okay, so we're going to actually show you those steps in the in what we're going to do now. Okay, one sec. Where is my, okay, here we go. Before we're going to read the excerpt, which is 4 sentences, I have a synopsis of what we would have been reading before this. Peter Rabbit and his 3 sisters, so you need to get a tea right now and relax. Peter Rabbit and his 3 sisters, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, live with their mother under the roots of a large fir tree. Peter, who is an adventurous young bunny, invades the garden of Mr. McGregor, despite his mother's orders not to do so, as his father had met with an unfortunate accident there and was made into a pie. After Peter has helped himself to some of the garden's vegetables and wanders about to find some parsley to settle his full belly, he is chased by the angry farmer. As he runs, he loses, the farmer is Mr. McGregor. As he runs, he loses his shoes among the vegetables and then gets caught up in a netting that protects a group of gooseberry bushes. Peter escapes just in time after a group of helpful birds implore him to exert himself. As he wiggles free, he loses his jacket just before Mr. McGregor can trap him in a sieve. He then ducks into a gardening shed and hides in a watering can, but gives himself away when he can't help but sneeze. After a time, he begins to wander, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. Finally, Peter thinks he's discovered the way out of the garden, but has he? Okay, so here is the text. And I'm going to use my class to show you, and I will try to point out the steps of reading from the book. So the first sentence that we will do tonight, we will be modeling step 1, okay? And step 1 again is structured reading with the teacher. We will structure what they're going to read. You might wonder sometimes, well, we'll talk about it soon. And remember, only 4 sentences. Okay, could I have Nancy White, Cushion White, to begin this process? Okay, so could you please read the first 2 words? Read the first 2 words.
He found.
Good. And the next 5 words tells us what he found.
A door in a wall.
A door in a wall, and then there's a semicolon, and we talked about what that means, that something's going to follow that's closely related to what we just read. Now, can you read the next word by itself? It's an alert word. It means something's going to be different.
But.
And read the next 3 words that tell us more.
It was locked.
It was locked. What does it refer to here?
Must be the door.
Oh gosh, that's not good news. Sometimes it's good if you're on the other side of the locked door, but not this time. Also, at the beginning of the sentence, it says he, so who is that about?
I'm pretty sure it was Peter.
Yep, okay. Can you read the next 1 word that tells us something's coming next?
And.
Good, and the next 4 words tell us more.
There was no room.
Read the next word.
For.
The next 4 words tell us who.
A fat little rabbit. Can I put those 4 together?
Oh, yes, you could.
For a fat little rabbit.
And then the next 3 tells us to do what? What did the rabbit do? To do what?
To squeeze underneath.
Oh, gosh. I can't believe it. Now, could you reread this sentence? And when you're rereading it, can you really think about 2 words that are super important? One of the words is locked. That's really important. And the other word is squeeze. Could you reread it now and think about those words as you read it and think about your good phrasing? And could you read it from the beginning?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
He found a door in a wall, but it was locked,
Uh,
and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath.
I love how you read that. Thank you so much. Okay, my class and my class that I can't see. Now we'll be doing step 2, studying aloud with the teacher. So what I would like is that I would like Bonnie to please read to the comma with good phrasing. The second sentence to the comma with good phrasing.
An old mouse was reading in, oh, I'm sorry, it's small. I'll start over.
Do you have it? Oh, do you have the paper or you
Yeah,
did? Oh,
yeah,
take that, fine.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
An old mouse was running in and out stone doorstep.
Okay, so you said an old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep. Okay, now I want you to reread that to the comma, but I want you to do the in and out like it's kind of frantic. Can you read that, like a frantic kind of in and out? Because I don't think she was kind of going slow. I kind of think she was moving quick. Okay, can you just kind of show that when you're reading it?
An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep.
Good. And Bev, can you read with good phrasing to the end of the sentence?
Carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood.
Okay. And now I'm going to ask Bev, in the wood, what are we picturing for that? Let's clarify that. Does it mean they were living in the woods? Or were they
No,
living in the...
I think it does because remember we were talking about that this isn't wood like a pile of lumber. It's another word for a little forest.
A little forest, okay. And does anybody else, what is Bonnie, what do you think about that? Do you think it means like they live in the woods, or do you think it means they live like kind of in the wood of the house, like in the wall?
Oh, okay.
What do you think,
Bonnie?
Bonnie?
I was picturing in the wood of the house, in the wall.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was picturing, but we don't know for sure. But now, can I ask for Sue to read that whole sentence again with good phrasing? Step 2.
So Sue had to already leave.
Oh, I forgot. I'm so sorry. Okay, Nancy Cushion White, could you read the whole sentence again, and the in and the out? Make sure you remember that she's moving quick. And when you read carrying peas and beans to her family, make it sound like she really cares about her family. Because she does. Okay, go ahead.
An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood.
Very nice. Okay. Now, class, I want you to read silently, and I want you to read to find the answer to this question. I want you to find the phrase that gives us the answer to this question. Why couldn't the mouse answer Peter's question? Why couldn't the mouse answer Peter's question? Please read silently to find out why. And raise your hand when you think you have found the phrase. Okay, Bev, could you tell us again, why couldn't the mouse answer Peter's question?
Her mouth was full because she had such a large pea in her mouth.
Oh, she has such a large pea in her mouth. Wow, that's great. And what color do you think that pea was?
Well, I'm guessing it was green.
I think you may be right. Okay. Now, Bev, could you read the whole sentence with good phrasing?
Okay. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer.
Okay. And now I'm going to have my whole class together. Step 4, we will not show tonight because that would be that the students would go back and read something new independent. We're not going to show that tonight, but what I am going to do is go back to step 1, and I want to just quickly do step 1 again for the last sentence. So my class, can you read the first word that tells us who?
She.
Okay, everybody together. And then the next 4 words tells us what she did.
Only,
Class together.
only
Oh,
shook
shook her
her
head.
Right. And the next 2 words tell, or read the next 2 words to the end of the sentence.
at him.
Good. Now, can you
At
read
him.
the whole sentence again with good phrasing?
She
She
only shook her head
head
at him.
at
at
him.
him.
And read the next 1 word that tells us who?
Peter.
Peter
Peter. And then read the next 3 words that tell us what he did.
began
began
to
to cry.
Good. Okay, very nice. Now, can you read the whole sentence again with good phrasing? The whole
The
sentence,
Peter,
just
the
as,
Peter sentence.
yes, the
Peter-
last sentence.
Peter. Okay.
The last sentence, I'm sorry.
Peter began to cry.
Began to cry.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I meant the last 2 sentences. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. She only shook her head at him.
At him.
At him.
Peter began to cry.
cry. Okay. Okay, now what I'm going to do is ask if Bev could read from the beginning all these sentences with good phrasing, and think about the emphasis. And the last sentence, really, it's so sad. So we really need to make it sound sad at the end. Okay, go ahead.
He found from the beginning.
From the top.
Okay. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry.
Oh,
Okay, now I don't want anybody to talk, but I want you, including my other participants who I can't see and are invisible, to write the ending to this passage. Write an ending to this passage. We will give people 3 minutes to write the ending to this passage. Okay. Bonnie, can I ask you to read your ending?
Sure, since I don't
Thank you.
remember the real ending. Peter looked around for something that might open the door. He spied a slender piece of wood and worked it in the lock. At last it worked and he was able to escape. But Mother Rabbit was very angry because he came home so late.
Oh, I think that you sound a bit like Beatrix Potter. I think you have become Beatrix Potter. Bev, can you read your ending?
Luckily, some birds encouraged him to find another way out.
I love that. And Nancy Cushion White, could you read your ending?
Well, as usual, I didn't have enough time, but I can read what I had. I'm still working
Okay.
on this more, Bev. Okay. Peter began to think of his family, and that made him cry even harder. He thought of his patient, forgiving mother, who had tried for years to teach him how to be cautious and to stay safe. He thought of his sisters, Flopsy and Mopsy, and the lessons they had tried to teach him. Most of all, he thought of his little sister, Cottontail. That's as far as I got.
Oh, those are great. Oh, those are great. Okay. Very nice. Okay. Those were beautiful. So teachers, everybody I can't see. So now we skipped over, which we don't always do to skip to the bottom, but we skipped to the bottom where it says independent writing. And that's what this is an example of, that we had just completed something. And then we just said, now just write about it. Now, you wouldn't do that with all kids, and we're doing it tonight because you're adults and we kind of want you to see how you can attach the reading of something to the writing. I also want to touch on, we have a couple of minutes still, something called Bloom's Taxonomy, which I gave you all a sheet with verbs for Bloom's. There are 6 levels of comprehension. So when you're asking questions of children, you want to be thinking about asking from all 6 levels. They start with the simpler questions and move into the more complex questions. And you want to make sure that you're using all of those, not just the basic remembering question. So I'm going to give you an example of one of each kind of question. So the first level of Bloom's is called remembering. And my question is, what did Peter find in the wall? Okay, very basic. And what did he find, class? He found a locked door in the wall. Okay. Understanding, who were the main characters in this excerpt? So we'd have to be able to know what is a main character and who were they. So my class, who would they be? My main characters.
The mouse.
The mouse, yeah.
And Peter.
And Peter. And that's, for that part, that's kind of it for the main characters, because those are, I think, the only characters in that, in the excerpt. Okay, applying. I might say I've been locked out of that discussion. What does this mean? So what does this mean, class, if I say I've been locked out of a discussion? Can somebody tell me? Bonnie, can you tell me what that means? Oh, are you muted?
I've been omitted. I can't participate.
Yes, you have been locked out, right. Maybe it would be called canceled now. I don't know. Okay. Analyzing. How do you think Peter felt? Read the sentence that tells us the most about how Peter felt. So Nancy Cushion White, what would you think would be the sentence that tells us about how Peter felt?
Well, Peter began to cry.
Yes, Peter began to cry. Right. That would be analyzing. Evaluating. Do you think Peter was naughty? Why or why not? Would it have been right or wrong for the old mouse to drop the P to speak to Peter? And how would old mouse's family have felt about that if she dropped the P to speak to Peter? And then the age of the responder might be different. Like if you say, was Peter naughty? a little kid might say, yeah, Peter was naughty. He didn't listen to his mommy. But an older child might say, well, he was hungry and he was curious and he wanted to know more about the world. Or would it have been right or wrong for Mouse to drop the pea? Well, it depends. If you're a little kid, they would say, no, I don't think it would be right for her because her family is hungry. But if you're older, they might say, well, you know, she needed to think about Peter also. And okay, so you get the idea. We have to give evaluating questions to them. And the last question, the highest level of Bloom's, is creating. How would the story have been different if the old mouse could have spoken? How would the story have been different if the old mouse could have spoken? Okay, so those are, and I can give those to people. I didn't include them in your handouts because I didn't want to give you so many handouts that you'd never check into the session tonight. So, and this is my working lesson plan. All right, I wanted people to see how I created my lesson plan. And wherever I am on my plan, I could tell you why it's there. For example, we didn't do the auditory side, but do you see all these words that are all these phrases and all my words? And then I've picked my letters because they are in my phrases and words that I'll be writing. So you can kind of see how this all kind of integrates. This is what Nancy Cushion White wants me to show you. Very important. The integration of the Slingerland plan. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. And when I was having trouble developing this plan, I had to write it on my lesson plan, and then I was able to really complete it. Okay, we're almost to the end. So I did want to show you I called it my working lesson plan, and I did it in handwriting because I think better when I'm writing. And okay, and that, I think, is the end. Thank you for joining us this evening. Please remember, when we know better, we do better. Just keep learning about the science of reading. And thank you to my class, who are very influential people in their own right. They're really my teachers, which is kind of funny that I'm teaching my teachers. And they agreed to come along on this ride tonight. And we are very grateful to them that they took the time to do this. They had to meet with me a couple times. And I think that's it. And we still are a few minutes before 9:30, or I think it's 5:30 by you, or wherever you are.
6:30. 6:30 here.
6:30. All right, because it started at 5. Okay. So I don't know if Elise, if there's questions, if people want to stay on for a few minutes, or.
We've been answering the questions as they've been coming in.
Great.
And
That sounds
right
even
now
better.
I'm kind of opening it up to allow everyone to ask live questions if they would like.
Okay.
So we'll see if there's.
So we won't see them. They will be not seen, but they will be heard.
They will
As
be
opposed
heard.
to they will be seen and not heard.
Why don't you
Won't
stop
get-
sharing so we can see more of the names?
Yeah.
What?
Stop sharing.
Oh, I stopped sharing. I'm sorry. Okay.
There.
Wow. We made it through that, all the way through down the visual side. We're tired now. We got to change into our slippers. I don't know. That was a long trek.
It was
down the
great.
visual side. Okay.
So we open the floor to any of our attendees. If
No,
you
I
wanna
see
unmute
Avram
yourself,
Chaim
you can-
Naftel. He's a
Yes.
relative of mine. Good job. That's youngest son saying that. See, at some point it all pays
Say
off.
hi.
Oh, there's Bonnie Meyer saying hi to Avram Chaim.
You could bring Dave in. You could say hi to Dave.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Okay. So are they're ready to ask?
I've told people to unmute and start asking questions. So
If
let's
they
see if
want.
we have any coming in.
And he's
Must
gonna
love.
applaud for the class.
Okay.
Somebody asked a question about the material that was used. And, you know, I think that maybe you could comment on the fact that we can use anything that's appropriate level for the kids.
Okay, I mean, that is the beauty the beauty of Slingerland is it's teacher training. So we can use anything that's appropriate for the reading level and the patterns of words that that child knows. So you're not trapped by having to use like a very scripted reader or, but that's not to say that you don't want to consider very carefully what you're giving them to read. You want to make sure that you've taught the patterns that are in it. Of course, there may be some exceptional words. That's with everything you're going to read, even with what we read. So you want to just make sure that you're matching the reading level of your child. Nancy Cushion White, do you have anything to add to that? Is that kind of what we're thinking? Okay. And it's such a great way to organize your lesson. Of course, you need more training to do that, like to do what we did tonight, but it's available. And now we're all zooming around, so it's more accessible than usual. We never thought we could do this, all this stuff. Now we're doing it. So you need to get in touch with the Institute. Right, Elise?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
We have
ma'am.
another question that came in. It
Okay.
said, at what grade level do we use the review reading sheet without having the students decode them?
It's not age.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
okay. Do you want to, Nancy,
Oh,
do you,
no.
no, do you want to answer? Because
No.
I'm not
Go
sure I
ahead.
have the best answer for that. But, you know, you want to review the patterns that they know, because they're not always going to sit and pull out the vowel and they're going to read, you know, so you're going to pick the things that you've taught and they've practiced a lot, and that becomes kind of a review list. And it would happen, Slingerland is gradeless, meaning you might be working with 6-year-olds, but you might be working with 20-year-olds or 18-year-olds. So it's not graded in that way. Is that a good answer?
I think so. And teacher judgment about what the children are ready for is so important. That the teacher is selecting things that aren't too hard, not too easy, and that you can use for teaching. Yeah.
Right. And then in terms of the review list, do you have anything to say, Nancy Cushion White?
Well, the goal is for the students to be doing automatically where we can't see the thinking that they're doing, but they have to practice doing it enough until they get to that point. So it's not just a question of can they get the word right, but if they saw any word that has patterns that they have learned, can they figure out what those words are? And if they can do that without going through any of the steps overtly so we can see, and they're doing
Right.
it all inside their head, then that's great. But if they can't do that, I would much rather have them use steps and read the word accurately than to not use steps and go faster and get it wrong.
Right.
There's a question about the pacing and over teaching that
Oh,
oftentimes
I
we
saw
do.
that.
And I think that, you know, you really have to know your students. I teach all the way from 1st grade to 5th grade, and my 1st graders, we are going painfully slow. They missed so much for so long in the COVID time when they were on Zoom and not in class. And I can't move any faster with them. It really relies on a lot of over teaching because they're not building that fluency and automaticity. And then again, with kids that are older, you might not need to do as much repetition. So it really depends on who you're teaching and what level they are. And you know, if you need to do the repetition, you can keep. Shira just had such a great example of how you make it exciting for the kids with prosody and adding accent and you know, voices. I mean, things that keep them engaged. They'll stay engaged because they want to learn. But if you try and go too fast, that's when you lose them.
And I have to
That's
say that
right.
the older kids, I worried when I was first working with high school kids and even the young adults in the pretrial diversion program that they were going to not want that repetition. sometimes when I'm teaching a high school class, I just stop during handwriting. They're tracing, and it's like they're enjoying it. It's really, I want to take a picture of it and say, and they're not, because they realize it's helping them, and they're getting
Right.
faster, and they're not using some of the same steps they used to have to. But when I was first using the Slingerland approach, I was told to drop steps, which makes sense. Well, I said drop steps, and man, did they drop them, never to be thought of again. We don't drop steps. I just say you don't have to say some of those steps out loud when you're starting to do it inside your head. You're still thinking them, and then it becomes more and more automatic. But we don't drop anything. It just goes from overt, where I can see it, to something that they're doing more automatically, which is what people are doing who didn't have trouble in the first place.
Great way
Right.
of saying that. Great way
And
of saying it.
practice does make
Mhm.
permanent. So if we go too fast, just as you said, and start making mistakes, then that's what they're going to remember, and then they get frustrated, and they don't see that they're making the progress that they want to make.
And I also think inside that question is kind of like, I forgot to mention my famous, skill before creativity. As teachers, we want to be creative because that's sort of the nature of teachers. But we need to know that we need to understand how to develop the skill and how to make it permanent. And then you mix in your creativity with it. But if you're only creative and you jump from here to there and you're not really systematic, that isn't very helpful to kids, and it doesn't give them a sense, I feel, of security when they come to meet you every day.
And
Because
you can,
every day when they know what to expect, then they do better because they can relax and focus on the new learning of the day. I think, but
well, there are two things that I want to comment on that. One is that sometimes kids who have a hard time paying attention, if they tune out, if they're in a situation where they can predict, I don't mean they're going to know every single thing that's going to happen, but if they know how the lesson plan goes, if they do tune out, when they tune back in, they know where you are, and they can pick
right,
up and stay with you. If what you do is some completely different every single day, they tune out, they tune back in, oh, I don't know what's going on, they go away again. And so there are advantages, but
right,
the other piece is that you can ask, you can be what one person's repetition. I wish I could pull up this quote. I just read it, and some one person, just because you think you would be bored by doing something over and over doesn't mean the kids who are learning it would, is one way of putting it. But you can have them practicing and doing repetition in slightly different ways, or you ask the question in a different way. It doesn't have
okay,
to be. It's only
It's
as
not lockstep.
yeah, it's only as well, it's only as boring as the person doing it thinks it is. I mean, I can convince people that things are interesting sometimes that they didn't think were going to be interesting
uh,
because I believe it. But when teachers will say, I could never do that, I agree with them. You're right, because you're not convinced, but I am convinced. And so I can
uh-huh.
get, or I guess what I'm saying is it would be more like I've had teachers say, I could never get my middle school students to do that. And I'm saying you probably couldn't because I can tell that you're not convinced that it works. But
Mhm.
I am convinced. So I think I could get your middle school students to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I can't just be convinced without a reason. I have to give kids reasons, especially if it's something that they don't think they want to do or they think they've done it before. And they need to know how it might be different, and that the only way we're going to know if it works is if they actually do it.
Right.
And that's one of the true joys of Slingerland teaching and learning, is that you teach through the intellect, and they learn how to apply what we're teaching them in new and novel situations.
Mhm.
For instance,
Absolutely.
I remember teaching a consonancy and then o consonancy, and pretty soon one of the kids would raise their hands and say, when are you going to teach us that I consonancy that says pine? Well, I think you know what it is. I think you taught yourself.
I think you
You
figured it
see,
out.
I think,
David Scher and the self-teaching hypothesis. There it is.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm always amazed, even in that short 1 month of summer school, if I have a list of words that we're going to decode. And I don't want you to tell me what the words are. I just want you to look at the list and tell me if there's anything you see that those words have in common.
Mhm.
And of course, I want them to notice what the new thing is, but I also want them to notice the patterns that we've been working on. And they're amazing in some of the things I haven't even thought about that are
Right.
good. And in a pretty short period of time, they might say, well, they all either have 1, 2, or 3 syllable words. And I said, well, how do you know you haven't read the words? Well, they have 1, 2, or 3 vowel patterns. So of course,
Oh, right. Yeah.
now what you told us to, oh yeah.
What's,
You
what's
know, I
wonderful-
wanted at the end to also give a shout out again to the Lexia people. I think that Mr. Anton is actually on this tonight, but I can't see people, but how really helpful that thing is, that you should all go and look at it, because it can really help you to create your word lists. And the other thing it can help you as a teacher is to better understand the patterns in the language. Because if you have to go and look in the word list and figure out where is EA, you have to know what EA is called in the science, a phonogram or a vowel team or whatever, and then you have to be able to look for it. So that is a great thing for teachers to just learn more about how the language is divided up and the patterns. So I really want to give a shout out to that. And it's now been made free to all people. And there's also a text called, what do you call it?
Scope and sequence.
Yeah, scope and sequence, sorry. Mrs. Murray scope and sequence, which talks about when you introduce certain things. So it can give you kind of a guide as to how you would do that if you don't have a text that works sequentially, which a lot of us don't when we start working with people, because we're not always working with kids that are in traditional settings, and we're not always starting with kids at the early beginning. And so it's very good to have that to look at. So check it out. And we're very grateful to them for all they've done. They've done this as volunteers all the years. They've had an organization and they've been volunteers just working on all this all the years. So we're very grateful to them for that.
Well, and thank you, Shira, for taking your time tonight and volunteering your
Yes.
skill and expertise.
Oh, my
Everyone.
pleasure. I hope we actually got to the end. I'm so
Good. Good.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any of
Wonderful.
the people still have questions? It still looks like we have 22 people. They're probably waiting for some questions to be answered, or maybe not.
I'm not sure if we have any more questions. Again, the floor is open if anyone wants to speak and ask.
Do they know that they can I guess they know they can unmute.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if so is there any other burning questions that you have?
We might be.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. We might be good. Thank you so much, Shira, for
Okay.
your energy and time
you.
this
And your
evening.
warmth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, don't forget Stella Luna.
Mhm.
And what was the Blueberries for Sal? And then Bev, I forgot the name of your book.
Little blue and little yellow
Little Blue and Little Yellow. Okay.
by Leone.
Oh, Avram Chaim Naftel is asking, is there going to be Slingerland this summer?
Thank you, Avram. We would like there to be.
Slingerland is eternal. It always is.
All right, everyone. Well, look for an email with a link to the YouTube recording for this presentation. Thank you for
Okay.
your time. And
And
have a
did you
great-
want to announce the handwriting workshop, or you did that already?
Yeah, well, I put the handwriting workshop in the reminder email, but we do have a handwriting workshop that begins next Thursday, the 11th, 2.5-hour sessions for 4 weeks. Registration is open for 3 more days. So if you're interested in kind of learning a bit more of the handwriting side, then go ahead and sign up. It's going to be virtual, and materials.
Your students' handwriting could look like the pictures we saw tonight.
Yes.
Let's go figure it. How nice that would be. You know, if you want a promotion at your school, you just walk into the principal and you, hey, check this out. This looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yep. So
You have to have that handwriting in order to express yourself.
Yep.
If you struggle over the letters, you can't get your ideas out.
yeah.